What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Blake Ruffino, and this is Are You Serious? In today's show, I'm going to be talking to you about some LSU basketball and their big win last night over Texas A&M. Also, I'm going to be talking to you about some LSU football recruiting with National Signing Day right around the corner. Also, I'm going to field and answer your questions in my new segment called Mailbox. You're going to want to stick around for that as well. But before I get into all that, go down to the description below, like my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages for all my latest news. Don't forget to like and subscribe on my YouTube page so you can see all of my latest videos. And today launches something that I'm very excited about. You can go to SoundCloud and catch my full audio from today's show as well. So I'm really excited about the podcast. It's been a long time coming, a lot of hard work. So catch out the full audio on SoundCloud, and you can see, because I won't be able to do full audio every day, and the podcast will let me at least be able to do audio, so I'm really fired up for that. Something that I kind of wanted to start off the show with was just in sports in general. If you guys saw last night, LeBron James did something that only 7 men can say, and that is score 30,000 points. But something that I took away from that most won't take away from, it's not the points. It is what LeBron has also done with those points. LeBron James is the only man that could say that he scored 30,000 points with 7,000 rebounds and 7,000 assists. That is amazing. The pure dominance that LeBron has shown in his entire career, but not just in his entire career, but over the last 10 seasons, is amazing. Regardless of how much you dislike or love LeBron as much as I do, you gotta love greatness and you gotta love dominance, and that's what LeBron has been for his entire career. All right, well, transitioning into some more basketball, LSU had a huge win last night over Texas A&M. I don't think that a lot of fans saw that one coming, with A&M getting a lot of their big men back last night. But at this point, do Aggie fans really think or believe that they can beat LSU in anything? Football, baseball, or basketball. Basketball this season alone has gone 2-0 against the Aggies. It's got to be really tiring. You LSU fans know how tiring that is, and getting beat by Alabama in football, although you mostly beat them in baseball and are really competitive with them in basketball as well. But last night, LSU came out with a lot of energy and set the tone early and got off to a good lead. Brandon Sampson on the offensive end had a couple of rebounds and some dunks that led to a three-point play on the foul line. Also, LSU just came out shooting threes, moving the ball well, and set that tone early in the first 10 minutes in the first half. Other than rebounding, LSU played some really good defense. LSU forced 20 turnovers, and they would need to have those 20 turnovers because they did not do well again in rebounding, which I'll touch on a bit later. But Texas A&M only shot 39% last night and went 6 from 28 from behind the three-point line. Brandon Sampson played some really good defense, and the backcourt played well and well enough to force those turnovers. Diop Reith has been huge over the last 2 games against Vandy and last night against Texas A&M. Last night alone had 21 points on 9 of 14 shooting and made a huge three-point shot there in the first half to what I talked about earlier in setting that tone. Now, he did have a three-point shot from the corner that was really ill-advised, and I thought Will Wade was going to come unglued, but he didn't. But you got to give Reith a lot of credit. I even came on my show and talked about how Reith needs to start getting bigger, and he has done that over the last 2 games, and the senior class has started to play well. With that 21 points, he also had 8 rebounds, and 1 huge block down the stretch. Reith by far, I believe, may be your most consistent player at this point. Now, you may say Tremont Waters, but over the last 4 games, Waters didn't perform at a consistent level that we were used to seeing. But on a night in, night out basis, Reith has shown that he is going to show up and at least give you a solid 12 points. And what he's done against Vandy with 31 points and last night with 21 points against Texas A&M has been game-changing as well. Parts of this, I believe, is Will Wade, and if you saw his press conference last night, stated that his guys needed to play better, and he called them out. And Diop Reith is a senior who has been around a lot. And he is the guy that I think has been leading this charge, and the stats and the performance just doesn't lie. In the last 2 games, averaging 26 points and 10.5 rebounds. He is leading the way and setting that tone in the locker room and on the floor for this team. And Will Wade really loves having that senior guy who can lead his team to do that. Now, in the 3-game skid that LSU has faced multiple times this season, LSU has not been able to put teams away. Now, in the first half, LSU led 41-26, but Texas A&M, like Georgia and like Alabama, would start coming back and would cut that lead within 10 and really rely on a Louisiana native and Robert Williams. Talking about Texas A&M relied on Robert Williams. And talking about Robert Williams, if you watched that game last night, what a huge miss by Johnny Jones. This is what got him fired ultimately. I believe that Will Wade would be able to go get Robert Williams. In the second half, Texas A&M continued to feed Williams and continued to get them back into that game. And during the game, I thought that this is the game that Tremont Waters, is going to have to show up and show that he's a leader and show that he can close these games out. Now, don't get me wrong, LSU had some other guys that performed really well. Now, Aaron Epps, who consistently gives you the 8 to 12 points. Last night he had 12 points. But Tremont Waters had to come up big, and he did. Waters did not really start off hot on the offensive end, and that would translate on how he shot at the end of the game. He only went 5 of 14. But it was really apparent that LSU was going to feed Waters the ball and let him try to close this game out. Waters had 15 points, as I mentioned, on the 5 of 14 shooting, 1 of 4 from 3. But that one 3-pointer he made was from NBA range, even further than NBA range, and he hit it at a time that LSU absolutely needed him to. Texas A&M had cut the game back within 10, and he hit a huge 3, and Texas A&M was never able to get over that hurdle. But as I mentioned earlier, Waters didn't have a good performance in the first half when it comes to offensive scoring, but he made a huge impact in other places with 9 assists and 8 huge steals. On the defensive end, he was picking everyone's pocket. And that is what LSU needed to win that game, because as I've been coming on here every single week, LSU struggles in rebounding. And Epps and Reith, it appears that they're giving you a lot of effort, but it just seems as if that they can never consistently get the rebounds. Now, in the last 5 minutes, Tremont Waters had 7 huge points in that long 3 that I was telling you about. Your star finally closed the game for you. He finally put it away. He went to the free throw line and drew a foul in a crucial point of the game. Waters last night, in what completely changed the game. Last night, Waters killed Texas A&M in transition and found his teammates with some good shots. That shows you with the 9 assists. He hit Diop Reith on a court-long pass, and it was an easy bucket for 2 to continue to build that lead in the first half. He continued to find his teammates, like I was mentioning earlier, in Aaron Epps with some corner 3s, and also there was a big assist he had when he found Aaron Epps from the free throw line that put the game away ultimately. And LSU is going to have to do this every single night if they're going to want to be competitive in the SEC. Now, this road record and the schedule that they have, or this, not the road record, but this road schedule that they have coming up with these really good teams is going to be tough when you got to go to Auburn and to Tennessee. They're going to have these type of performances every night out. As I mentioned of the rebounding, LSU was out rebounded 50-30. You're not going to win unless you do one thing, and that is those 20 turnovers that LSU was able to commit. So in all of this, in the most complete game I would say that LSU has played so far, I really hope that LSU is able to close it or continue to do this and continue to get solid play from the other guys other than Reith and Waters. All right, guys, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be talking about some LSU recruiting. But before I get into all that, as I mentioned earlier, you can follow me on Facebook at Are You Serious Sports. You can also follow me on Twitter at AY55PORTS or on Instagram, all lowercase, Are You Serious Sports. And don't forget that I launched my podcast today, and you can catch that on SoundCloud as well. All right, guys, let's talk about some LSU recruiting. I know that there's a lot that's been going on, and some LSU fans have been getting antsy of late, and it's really justified. Now, the four guys that LSU fans have really come to know in this recruiting process is Pat Surtain Jr., Jamar Chase, Kelvin Joseph, Mario Goodrich, and James Foster. Now, that's 5, but we all know that Kelvin Joseph has already verbally committed, and he's going to be taking his visit. Although he did not take his visit last weekend, don't read into anything of that. He just wanted his entire family to be there, and he mentioned that, and he's not going to be taking his visit to Alabama, which should put some ease to you LSU fans. But the big names that LSU are looking at is obviously number 1 at Patrick Surtain Jr. Now, a lot of fans have been saying, or a lot of fans have been getting uneasy about Pat Surtain possibly liking Alabama. But he has come out on social media and said, look, I continue to say that LSU is my favorite, and LSU will continue to be my favorite, but I do like the idea of Alabama. The truth is that if you take off the blinders of being an LSU fan, every big-time recruit is going to like the idea of going to Alabama. Look at what they're doing in the last 9 seasons with winning 5 national titles. If you're that highly rated and the number 1 corner in the nation and the number 5th overall recruit in the nation, why not entertain the idea? But I fully believe that Patrick Surtain Jr. is going to be at LSU. I think that this is a lot of build-up to his National Signing Day, causing some, I don't want to say chaos because chaos isn't a good word, but some real controversy, if you will, just to build that up for when he signs. If it were today, I would say that there's a 75% chance that Pat Surtain will be at LSU, and don't take that as a big loss. 75% is really good when you're talking about a top 10 recruit in the nation, but never underestimate Nick Saban. Excuse me. The number 2 guy that everyone has been talking about is wide receiver out of Rummel, 5-star wide receiver out of Archbishop Rummel, and that's Jamar Chase. I feel confident that he is going to be at LSU. I feel more confident about him than anybody else, and I'll say that. When he took his visit a couple weekends ago, Chase stated about new wide receivers coach Jerry Sullivan that it is just the icing on the cake for me. Now, Chase did not take his visit to Auburn and is not planning on taking his visit to Auburn. I fully expect Jamar Chase to be at LSU. Now, if LSU is able to get those 2 guys, you're talking about 2 top 20 guys in the 2018 class. The 2 guys that I'm really iffy about is Mario Goodrich, 4-star athlete out of Missouri, and James Foster, quarterback out of Alabama. The reason that I'm iffy on Mario Goodrich is when he also took his visit to LSU a couple weeks ago, he didn't post anything about it. He didn't say he liked the visit. He didn't say he loved the visit. He did tell a couple of guys, like, he didn't tell me specifically, but he did tell some people that he liked the visit, but didn't post anything on social media. The reason, or you may be asking yourself, well, Blake, why does that matter? And why do you take that so to heart? It's mainly due to because last weekend, Mario Goodrich went to the University of Georgia. And when he went to the University of Georgia, he dressed out and had a picture with Kirby Smart and posted it all over social media. Those kind of things tend to scare me when it comes to recruiting. I would feel that Mario Goodrich is moving elsewhere other than LSU at this point. And I don't have an inside guy in the Goodrich camp that could tell me otherwise. This is just a feeling that I have when it comes to Goodrich. If I had to guess, I would say that Goodrich is 25% leaning towards LSU. I don't necessarily foresee him being an LSU Tiger. And talking about James Foster, the quarterback Alabama that has really come on the scene of late, not just to LSU fans, but to Alabama fans as well, and also to Florida State. I really feel like this is a two-man battle between Florida State and LSU. Florida State has shown that they are really all in on James Foster. Right after his visit right after he left Baton Rouge on his official visit, Florida State went in home with James Foster, and started pushing the envelope. Now, James Foster was once a Missouri commit, and if you guys saw, former LSU quarterback Lindsey Scott committed to Missouri, which is great for him. I feel like that Foster is going to be leaning more towards Florida State at this point than LSU. I think it would take a lot for LSU to get James Foster, but you never know. I really do feel 50-50 at this point with James Foster on where he goes in reference to Florida State or LSU. So I really like James Foster. I've always liked James Foster as a quarterback, but I just can't tell you who I think or where I think he's going to end up. But if you ask me who I think LSU is going to land and finish the 2018 recruiting class with, I would say Surtain, Chase, and just really a toss-up, or maybe even someone that we're not even talking about that LSU will bring in. And don't be surprised if LSU has a backup plan when it comes to quarterback that we're not hearing anything about. All right, guys, as I mentioned to you in the early segment, or the beginning of the show, today's show, I'm going to be doing my segment called Mailbox, where I answer some of your questions. And I got a lot of great questions from a lot of the fans and a lot of the people that follow me on social media. And one that was really good was from Corey Collette. He asked me, Blake, the biggest question that I have, and I'm sure a lot of LSU fans have when it comes to LSU, is the quarterback position. Corey stated that he thinks that Lowell Narcisse is the guy that LSU should move towards, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with him. But I do believe that Myles Brennan is going to be who they're going with. Now, I fully expect for Brennan to start at LSU, and it's his job to lose. I saw something Monday on Off the Bench with Collada and T-Bob, if you guys were able to catch it. They had Myles Brennan's old coach on, Coach Conades, Bill Conades, and he said something to Jordy that really caught my eye. Jordy asked a question under former offensive coordinator Matt Canada. Do you believe that Myles took a step forward under his leadership? And I'm quoting Coach Conades when he says this, and he says, he did some. That doesn't make me feel all good inside when the former coach of Myles Brennan says, I think he grew some, but not a lot. Now, the good thing about Myles Brennan, and you, as a lot of you fans know, that the coaches at LSU can't have a lot of contact or really any contact with the players during the summer. Coach Conades is going to be training Miles, and I think that's going to benefit Miles really well and benefit LSU really well, especially if Miles is going to be the starting quarterback in 2018. I think that Miles is the guy to beat. I think that in the offense that LSU is wanting to run, that LSU should stick with Miles. But I fully believe that Lowell Narcisse is going to have some packages for him in the red zone and some third and short yardage situations. It's going to be interesting to see how that spring plays out. Another question was from a fan, Jeff. He asked, what do you think that staff needs to show or do to get Grant Gunnell into the fold? I think that Grant Gunnell is already into the fold. If you guys saw a couple weeks ago, Grant Gunnell said that he talks to Ed Orgeron very frequently, and that Coach Orgeron said that he would bring Mike the Tiger to his National Signing Day if he were to sign with LSU. I think that Gunnell is already high, if not the number one guy in the 2019 class for LSU, but it's going to take a lot for LSU to flip Gunnell from Texas A&M. What is going to flip Gunnell ultimately is seeing Steve Ensminger and his offense and seeing how productive Miles Brennan, ironically, does in that offense. So I would see how the season plays out in reference to Gunnell. He's not going to show you anything, and neither should he. But I think he's in the fold, and LSU and Ed Orgeron's not going to back down at this point. But look, when it comes to recruiting, you have to give Orgeron his credit and Steve Ensminger his credit. I think that they have a plan in place for if Gunnell does not commit to LSU of a really good quarterback that they can go and get. The next question comes from Preston Guy. What's up, Preston? He says, is the Will Wade impact overrated? No, and in fact, Preston, I think that it's kind of underrated. And what I mean by that is outside of Baton Rouge, do you hear anybody really talking about it? Think about how bad LSU was last year in basketball and how good and competitive they've been this season. Now, I know that LSU is 12-7, but they haven't necessarily been blown out other than in one game so far. Will Wade, as I mentioned earlier, does have his entire team fitting into his system and doing what he wants to do. I think that it's going to be very deadly if Tremont Waters has now found that closer role and then is back into that closer role and leading the team. Will Wade and this LSU basketball future the ceiling is so high. There's no telling where the ceiling will go or how high it will go. I just think that if LSU, and this is a huge if LSU is able to get into the tourney, get into the March Madness tourney, that LSU could shock some people because there's not a lot of people talking about them. And they do have some really big wins on their resume. But it's going to take beating a good team like Auburn and beating a good Tennessee team to get the national media on board and get some national attention. The next question and the final question is from Joe Lawrence. Joe asks, what are the chances that we keep Surtain Jr. from Alabama? What are also the chances of us getting Foster? Joe, I think that that's the best question so far when we're talking about LSU recruiting, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm sitting here trying to come up with a different point and a different thought, but I really can't. I think that we are going to land Pat Surtain. I feel very confident in that Pat Surtain Sr. is really good friends with Corey Raymond. That story that was leaked about about Surtain Sr. being a coach at Alabama, that could have come from anywhere, and I think that he would have already accepted a job if that were the case, and he could have accepted a job a couple years ago before his son would be signing with a school, which would have made things a lot easier. But I feel 75% confident that we retain Pat Surtain, but I don't feel confident at all that we land James Foster at this point. I'm 50-50. I would be really pumped up if we were able to land him, but I wouldn't be shocked if we didn't. All right, guys, I hope you loved today's show. Again, don't forget to catch the full audio on my new podcast on SoundCloud, and we'll see you guys again soon. Peace out, guys.